Alright, guys, it's been 2 weeks since my last installment of the DCEU versus MCU rant series. I am here, Backseat Hero, back again with a Backseat rant for you guys. I took an extra week to make sure I had enough time to give you guys a good quality video. I really hope you guys enjoy it. I've gotten some really good feedback, and I just want to thank all of you, and please keep it coming. I don't really want to spend too much time introducing this. You guys know what's going on. If you don't, please check out the other two parts in the series. I really think you'll enjoy them. So yeah, let's dive right into my opinions on the pros, cons, and future of the MCU. One of my favorite parts of my last two videos were the parts where I utilized footage and trailers. And based off feedback, you guys tended to enjoy that too. So I'm using MCU trailers for this video, obviously. And I just want to tell you guys right off the bat to show you the kind of fan I am. I got so stoked watching these trailers again as I was collecting the footage. It's just really awesome to relive those moments of watching these movies that I really enjoyed, specifically Phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's where I really think Marvel is the strongest. Phase 1 and the origin story movies. Iron Man changed the way superhero movies were made. He tested the limits of what makes a hero a hero. The origin story was something we hadn't really seen before. It was unique. And it touched on really serious real world issues while also keeping this fun, lighthearted sense of watching a superhero movie, and I loved it. And it really helped jumpstart my interest into comic books, as I've said in previous videos. Then came The Incredible Hulk. Now, even as a little kid, I didn't enjoy the first live-action Hulk movie we got. It did spawn an amazing video game, I have to say. But other than that, we didn't get much. Then The Incredible Hulk came out, and I loved it. It was really awesome to see this emotional side of Bruce Banner. This kind of aggressive, angry Bruce Banner who only is determined to get rid of the monster inside him, while also prepping and being ready to fight if he needs to. Like, it was such a cool take, and I just loved Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. He's a great actor, and I enjoy a lot of his work, and he really brought Bruce Banner to life for me. I thought the acting in the movie was phenomenal. I thought the writing, and I really feel like that's where Marvel is its strongest, like I said, in origin movies. Although The Incredible Hulk was kind of cool and unique. It wasn't necessarily an origin movie like Iron Man or Thor or Captain America, where you see the character progress to becoming a hero over the plot line. You see someone in the middle of the circumstances, kind of like how I'd say Michael Keaton's first appearance as Batman was. You get this world where there's already a Hulk, and he's struggling with that, and then you start learning about how it happened, because they didn't want to establish a new origin movie at the time because we had already gotten one a few years prior. And I feel like that's something Marvel's really good at, is respecting the fact that we kind of already know a lot of the mainstream origin stories, so let's just focus on what makes the character the character. So yeah, moving through Phase 1, we were introduced to Thor in a movie that a lot of people don't acknowledge as Marvel's best work. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool to be able to learn so much about the character, but I do stand by the fact that it's one of Marvel's more boring installments, though it's very story and character driven, and I did enjoy it. However, my favorite Phase 1 Marvel movie, which is somewhat of a surprise to people when I say it, is Captain America, because that was the example of what Marvel movies should be for me. It took the character, established the kind of character he was and why he was a hero before he got his powers, and then we see him get the powers, and we kind of see a little bit of an internal struggle for him of the staying the man he was beforehand, and it just really drove home who Captain America was and what he stood for. And it had the most solid villain out of the Phase 1, in my opinion. And it had an amazing ending, resolution, and it segues perfectly into the Avengers, which is an example of Marvel at its finest. The Avengers covered so many bases, and one of the reasons why I think it was so amazing was because it was still an origin story movie. It followed the exact same plot and formula that Phase 1 and all origin movies follow. And even though it's a sequel to Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Hulk, it really was an origin and the starting point of a series, because there's multiple different series within the MCU franchise. And it established some new characters and really just established the fact that we're in a larger universe. But from then on, that's where Marvel starts to lose its steam for me. Right now, the thing that I feel Marvel is maintaining really strongly is their lighthearted, fun, more family-oriented, less serious way of approaching things, which they've found a lot of success in, but it's also where I'm starting to think they're falling behind. Iron Man did such a good job of covering real-life topics and had serious consequences, and then in Iron Man 3, they just kind of throw all that realism to the wind for some one-liners, some funny moments, and the villains just get flushed down the toilet. Marvel does not know how to do good villains anymore, and I feel like it's because they put so much emphasis on these heroes that they just don't know how to keep a good villain going. They had so much potential with Mandarin. I loved what they were doing with him. Mandarin's one of my favorite Iron Man villains. He's probably my favorite Iron Man villain. And they just throw him to the wind. Sure, Trevor was hilarious and he's an enjoyable character, but seriously? They're gonna dump Mandarin for Killian? That just didn't make sense to me. Thor 2, I will admit, is probably the better of the Phase 2 Marvel movies. It followed the same pattern as Thor with being slightly more boring. It has some really cringeworthy moments, like Thor on the subway. Didn't make sense at all. But then it had some really fun moments, and it's one of the only ones that has an excuse for the Avengers not being involved. Because during that time, it's on the other side of the world. At the same time, Captain America's dealing with Hydra, and Tony's doing his stuff and quitting being Iron Man, and Banner's doing who knows what, and S.H.I.E.L.'s falling apart, so S.H.I.E.L.D. can't respond. That's the only one that makes sense. I don't understand why they doesn't show other Avengers getting involved in Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is my lowest point for me. Winter Soldier is the lowest point for me and the MCU, for the sole reason that it started to epitomize what Marvel is becoming. Marvel has moved away from character plot driven movies to movies that solely rely on the action, the humor, and the visuals. They don't focus on the characters hardly at all anymore. They just like using plots to set up action-packed scenarios and then filling it with as many humorous moments as possible to keep everyone in the audience interested, engaged, and entertained. And Winter Soldier is a fun action ride. It's enjoyable to watch. It has amazing action sequences. The plot is just subpar, and they really ruined an opportunity to put some awesome emotion into Phase 2 with the Bucky and Cap storyline. And they wasted Sebastian Stan as Winter Soldier by barely giving his character any depth whatsoever, and which they ended up having to make up for in Civil War. But then by the time Civil War hit, it just felt kind of rushed and thrown together, and they were just kind of trying to do it just to get it out there. So instead of going into the whole controversy about Civil War only happening because of Batman v Superman, I'm just gonna cut right into my biggest complaints with Civil War because it really just shows my feelings towards the future for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They just they don't know how to do villains anymore. I mentioned this earlier, but it really got driven home to the full extent with Civil War. I didn't think you could ruin Zemo. I didn't think that you could touch Zemo. It was a given. They did so well with Red Skull and Hydra initially that Zemo was gonna be a really solid character. I didn't realize Civil War was gonna end up being a Zemo origin story. Like that ruined the character a little bit for me, and then the person that he was and his motivations and his whole plan it really was lackluster and kind of sucked. But at least I didn't, I think I was so hurt by Zemo because I had assumed they couldn't do anything with, I wasn't expecting anything that they did. With Crossbones, I was at least hopeful and optimistic because they were doing a bit of a different take on him from Winter Soldier, and I was really excited to see where they would go with it and show us a fully awesome, achieved Crossbones. And we don't learn anything about the character, really why he becomes Crossbones, how he becomes Crossbones, and they kill him off within the first 10 minutes. It just really drove home that Marvel focuses way too much on their heroes and doesn't know how to establish their villains in their universe anymore. Except when they're painting their heroes as villains. Tony Stark, who I rooted for and was on his team in the comics, got painted as and turned into a villain in Civil War, and it just really, really hurt that movie for me. There are a lot of strong points in Civil War that saved it slightly, in my opinion. Spider-Man was a really solid, strong character. Black Panther was amazing. I loved T'Challa's story and how they were able to work it into the plot without taking too much away from what they were establishing in that movie already. They really got me excited for the Black Panther movie, and they've started putting me on the trail to get excited for Spider-Man Homecoming. Still slightly skeptical on that, but we'll talk more about that as the movie gets closer to its release. The climax of the movie was very, very disappointing and underwhelming. It really made no sense for Iron Man to be as mad as he was. The fight scene was enjoyable to watch, but the ending was terrible. I was really hoping someone would die. I was really hoping Cap would die like in the comic, but at least was hoping that Tony would die or Bucky or someone to add a little bit of emotion to this movie, because Rhodes had already been paralyzed. But then no one dies. Rhodes isn't really paralyzed. He's walking at the end. Sure, he's paralyzed, but walking with the help of cybernetics. But still, that's no solid consequence there. And Cap leaves a little love note for Tony, like, if you need us, we'll be there. And it just really kind of defeated the whole purpose of the movie for me. And there are a lot of other plot holes and flaws. I'm not going to delve into all of them because I don't want to sound like I'm hating too much on this movie, because it was enjoyable to watch, but Ant-Man did not need to be in there at all. They did nothing to help his character. He was enjoyable, he was funny, he was everything that I enjoyed about the first movie, his character in the first movie, but they didn't establish his reason for him being there. He had no reason. He wakes up in the van, looks around, oh crap, here's the Avengers, oh crap, they're fighting each other, I guess I'll help the guys who brought me here. Spider-Man didn't need to be there either. At least they tried to weasel him in there, and it kind of worked, but at the same time it compromised Tony's whole drive and motivation for the movie. All in all, Civil War was mediocre in my opinion, and at least it had a lot more strong suits than some of the other elements of Marvel movies in the past. I could have delved more into how I felt about Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy, and I will say that I did enjoy them, but it kind of goes without saying because I do enjoy the Marvel origin formula. I've talked about that. And I could delve more into what I feel is going to go on for the sequels and what I'm scared for and excited for, but I really want to focus on the Doctor Strange kind of controversy that's developing right now. So for those of you who don't know, Doctor Strange was revealed to critics, and Rotten Tomatoes has released about 12 reviews, I think it was now, and people are shocked to find that it has 100% out of those 12 reviews. Not very many reviews, but still 100% is huge, especially on Rotten Tomatoes. And of course, it stirred up the fire between Marvel and DC, with the DCEU having lacked in Rotten Tomatoes in the past, and Marvel movies using that as a kind of push towards it. And now everyone's going crazy on both sides. Either see this as an example that Marvel is way better, or see this as an example that reviewers are in Marvel's pocket. I do not believe that either of those arguments. I've said before, I don't really care what critics have to say. I stand by what the director of Doctor Strange said when Suicide Squad came out. If you trust the words of any critic that doesn't share your own biases, you are doing yourself and cinema a disservice. I paraphrased what he said, but basically, if you're going off of someone's opinion just because they're a professional critic, and you don't know for a fact that they have the same movie taste as you, or that you agree with them most of the time, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You shouldn't base your opinions on anything, your pre-opinions on anything, before you experience it for yourself, unless you're taking it from someone who you tend to always agree with. I don't care whether a movie's positively reviewed or negatively reviewed. If I enjoy it, then I enjoy it. If I dislike it, then I dislike it. And film is a very subjective thing, and I feel like that's something people forget. And that's where this becomes such a contentious, heated topic. But I really don't like to get involved in the arguments between the arguments dictating the reviews of Marvel and DC movies, because again, they tend to get really heated, and I don't really care what critics say. But this is kind of grinding my gears a tiny bit, and here's why. Most of the things that have been said about Doctor Strange up to this point is that the visuals are phenomenal, and that's what I expected. The trailers looked amazing, and Doctor Strange is one of the most visually stunning comic books you will ever read, and I can't wait to see what the movie looks like. It looks fantastic visually. But they also say the plot is somewhat lacking, and it's made up for by the stunning visuals and the things that come along with that, and the usual Marvel humor and quirky characters. But that's really funny coming from the same critics who bashed Batman v Superman and X-Men Apocalypse, a film that I thought was solid and loved, for having weak plots and relying way too much on visuals, characters, and action. They wrote the exact same reviews for all three movies, but they twisted Doctor Strange, or depending on if you want to look at it, they twisted the reviews to make a few of them sound in a negative light and the other ones sound in a positive light. And it really just confuses me about, so when is it okay to rely on visuals while sacrificing your plot, and when is it not okay and you're just banking too much? That's what I really want to know, and I want to hear your guys' opinion on it. So comment, respond, please. I want to hear how you guys feel about this. Are you excited to see Doctor Strange? Are you excited to see Wonder Woman? How do you feel about these movies going forward? What is your opinions already? I love discussions and stirring up discussions, and just let me know, guys.
I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. I'm hooked on a feeling.
So, real quick, guys, starting this Wednesday, I'm going to be starting a new series called Reactive News, where I will be giving you guys my reactions to geeky news, and I'll be reporting on it and letting you guys know what's going on, showing you some cool stuff, and really just getting my hype out in a really fun way and interacting with you guys. I'm really enjoying my rant videos, and I want to do something in a different style, and I feel like this would be a cool, fun way to cover this sort of information. So if you guys haven't checked out my video from last Wednesday, I'll put the description in the link, and I'll put an annotation on the screen. So yeah, check that out, and it will link you to the playlist where Reactive News will be in the future. Thank you so much for watching.